I mean, I've spoken about it before. You may not want to, but we were doing pre-game mindfulness, which was something hugely different to our routine. We would hear Simo's address. My whole footy career, right, Dan? We would warm up, we'd be sprinting around, we'd be tackling, bumping. Simo would chat to us, Woosha would chat to us. You'd have senior players in your ear, and then you go out and you get yourself fired up and you go and play, right? Get the music pumping.
Yep.
All of that, none of that changed. It was always the same. But we at one stage in 2018, I think every game we would have a mindfulness session, and it was optional, I reckon, in 2018. You could opt in or out, but pretty much everyone was in there. We would be in a room, lights off, doing a mindfulness session before games, including the grand final. I think people who are listening along would find that wild because I think, I don't know, you're looking into a football club, you imagine everyone down there rough and tumble,
hyped up. Yeah,
grabbing each other by the jumper and smashing each other. We would sit in a room in silence with the lights off, and Nico would speak to us.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thought, isn't it? But it's once again probably the transition or the transformation in where sport's going, and people trying to find an edge with programs and those sorts of things. And Praddy was really big in helping us with that when you guys travelled away, and he was a big part of those moments that you talk of. And also Lukey Webster at different stages too. So, once again, it's just providing an opportunity for the person to find the level of connectedness with the moment. And a dark room might work for you, it might not work for you. You might like to walk out onto the arena and do a practice that way. It once again, it's probably individually specific.
You would have done a lot of research then of like techniques that sporting clubs and coaches are doing around the world. Is there any that you just completely outrageous that come to mind?
Or successful?
Everyone sort of seems to be doing quite a bit of the same sort of from the research and the education that I've had on it.
Wasn't it a big part of the Lakers with?
We're talking back in the Bulls days.
Phil Jackson.
Yeah, and he's probably a bit of a pioneer.
And
we're talking about a practice that's been around for thousands of years, right? Like
Phil Jackson used to go like full native Indian,
he was like a Zen master, really.
Yeah.
He sort of had that. He would get the Bulls. I mean, his books are great to read if that's your flavour too. But he'd get the Bulls to lie down and do meditations. That's like mid-90s.
I remember doing that.
But yeah.
Do we not do that?
Where
I remember lying down and you speaking.
But I'm saying, like, in terms of anything that's maybe that's current now, that's different. Is the only one that I remember coming across, which was speaking to a guy in the States, was he was talking about he wasn't fond of it, but they're talking about sort of the hypnotic way of enhancing performance. But that's kind of
hypnosis.
As far as that conversation got.
This mindfulness whole thing took me 6 months to get my mind around. So if you're listening along and you're still thinking, don't know how that practically looks, well, the best example I can think of is the 2018 grand final. 2015, start poorly, as I spoke about, have no mental tools to be able to deal with the external pressure, and mindfulness and the techniques involved allow you to, they attempt to allow you to, yes, accept that everything's not going to be perfect, but also get yourself in the moment and ignore external vibes like the scoreboard, like the crowd, or even just acknowledge that they're going on and still be able to focus on what you're doing. So 2018, 5 goals down in a grand final, it's happening again. That is something that I've spoken about since that day. And it's the reason why I speak about you and your program, Nico, and why I think that you have the biggest hand in us winning that. And I understand that you'll be sitting there going, well, there's lots of other reasons. And yes, there is lots of other reasons. Lots of other reasons that teams win. But the ability for the collective group to ignore a 5-0 grand final. You don't come back and win those in regular season. You don't do that in pre-season. You don't do it in scratch matches you don't come back from 5-0 and win. To do it in a grand final, there need to be, that's not just luck or skill even. We had mental strategies to deal with that. And I remember feeling on the field that it wasn't really a big deal. Well, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal.
The fact that you were 5 down.
5 down.
Yep.
So in terms of practical examples of mindfulness, would that be a good one in terms of dealing with externalities.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's your experience.
It's a good call.
Yeah, that's your experience in it, and I don't know what it was. I mean, it was probably a shared experience for a couple of guys, definitely. I don't know what the collective's experience was with it, but once again, you're right. There were so many other factors at play. What an epic year! What a spirit and culture that was sort of just permeating through the whole group, and it's one of those ones you can't measure. But it's great that we were able to have confidence in the fact that we had the strategies in place to win that day. Yeah.
How do you reflect on 2018?
Yeah, I spoke about earlier, rounding it off in terms of the grand finals that I've been a part of, but 05 was what it was. We lost and it was really disappointing. 06 was amazing for the club and the players. It was tough personally to miss it. And 2018 was kind of like, I understand now. That it's so much that goes into winning a flag, and it's far greater than just the 22 guys that get selected on that day. And it's probably because I got to be a part of a great footy department for, at that stage, it'd be year 4 or 5 that I'd been doing it, where it was like, man, I see that guy in the department do so much work, and then I see that guy, and I see that guy, and I see that guy, and then everyone's doing so much work, and then you guys go out there and you win, and you do what you did. And then everyone's out in the field, and I was sort of looking around going, I'm okay now. I'm all good. Like this AFL thing I can kind of separate myself from to some degree, because I feel like it's all just rounded off perfectly. It's not necessarily about me being up there with the medal around my neck. It's about being part of the bigger collective of people that have worked so hard to provide a platform and an opportunity for these guys to shine and do what they did in 2018. So, yeah, that's what I remember at the day. I remember having a few big hugs with yourself and TB and Coley and a lot of the backs, and then maybe sharing a beer or two.
That was just a little teaser of our full episode. They're out Wednesdays on YouTube, and you can listen to them wherever you get your podcast. Go on, get out of here.